なんと脱ぎ始めた。なんだ。
せーの。
What you've just witnessed there is the most traumatic moment and probably one of the cruelest moments ever in TV history. This is the end of a game show in Japan. This man is called Tamuki Hamasutu, otherwise known as Nasumbi. He was an aspiring comedian who agreed to go on a national game show in Japan called Damper Shonen, which means do not proceed. The show was notoriously known for putting their contestants in stressful and awful and traumatizing situations. For example, leaving their contestants stranded on a desert island with no food and no water, and them having to build a raft together to get off it. This is just one example of what the game show was like and how the Japanese people really enjoyed the show. It was very popular at the time. So Nasumi here, his nickname became Nasumi, which means eggplant, because he was broadcast on national television live, completely naked. And he had that nickname, not that he was aware, because he had no idea that any of this was going on. But before we begin, hi, I'm Kat, and welcome to Kat's Chat, the critical thinking channel. Here we dive in and out of various online topics, and today is a very bizarre and yet harrowing one. So I'm going to put a little bit of a trigger warning. We do discuss mental health and how isolation can affect that, and how to overcome the trauma of being put in a situation that Nansumbi has been put in. So if this is something that may be triggering to you or upsetting to you, please be very careful watching this video. Or, if it's not for you, that's fine. I will see you in the next one. So yeah, let's get into it. Nasumbi was a winner out of 20 applicants to take part in this game show, and the prize was around 1 million yen, which now equivalent to about £4,723 in the UK. They told him that he had to be put in an apartment, and this apartment had a small kitchenette and a toilet, and he was told what he had to do. He was told he had to remain in this apartment with no possessions or a link to the outside world until he could win the 1 million yen's worth of prizes in a sweepstake. So for anyone who's unsure what a sweepstake is, it's when you basically go through magazines and newspapers and sign up for competitions to win various items. And Nasumbi had to win 1 million yen's worth of these items. He had to have them delivered to him, and then once it all added up to 1 million yen, he was able to go. So he's left in this apartment with nothing, not even his clothes, but with a ton of magazines to write into, a ton of newspapers, a pen and some paper and envelopes. And they just left him there to see how he was going to get on. They did provide him with water, heat, electricity, a radio so he could listen for the sweepstakes, a phone purely for sweepstakes, and postcards and magazines. Everything else he would need to win, and that included food, toiletries, and clothes. They took all of his clothes when he went in there. Nasumi knew he was being filmed, but what he didn't know is that he was live all over Japan and was being viewed by 10 million people. Every day he would be hoping for mostly clothes and food in the sweepstake. At first he was given a small piece of bread a day, which wasn't sustainable. After not eating for days, he was allowed to come to his door was the express delivery person with the sweepstake prizes. So he mainly wanted clothes and food at this time. And in one of his first deliveries, he got some fiber jelly, which he was really pleased about. He'd not really eaten anything, so the first bit of food was very welcome to him. Again, he is unaware that he is being watched by all these people. A week later, he got a bag of rice, which he was very, very excited about, but then realised that he had no way to cook it as he didn't have any utensils or any way to boil the rice. So he decided to try and put it in the jelly packets and warm it up, and he managed to eat it that way. So, as you can see, it's already quite a rigorous challenge. He got canned spaghetti, he got body soap. The name Nasubi came at this point as it's Japanese for eggplant, and the directors and producers would put eggplant over Nasubi's bits to hide his private parts from the live audience, and so Nasubi became what he was known for. He became very famous as well for doing a little dance whenever he won something on the sweepstake, again not having a clue that this was all being broadcasted live all over Japan. His sweepstakes began adding up. He received a bike and then realised that he had nowhere to ride it, so that was probably just a little bit. As he has nowhere to ride it, he started winning more and more things, including a TV, but it had no aerial, and he got a PlayStation game, but no console. He also got a stuffed toy seal, which he named Venus, that became his only companion, and he would begin talking to it. How isolation alters cognitive function and mood. Chronic isolation measurably reshapes the brain, triggering a response similar to a survival threat. The stress of disconnection activates the same neural pathways as physical pain and escalates cognitive decline. This sustained stress makes it harder for the brain to regulate emotions and think clearly. The neurological impact includes reduced volume in regions like prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus, which control the memory and executive function. This atrophy is associated with impaired executive function, memory loss, and difficulty focusing attention. Isolation heightens the risk of major depressive disorder and anxiety, creating a cycle where the mood disorders deepen the isolation. Disconnection can lead to constant vigilance and rumination, and emotional regulation falters without social support. So we're already 6 months in. He's not had very much food. He is now conversing with a stuffed toy just for some connection. And the only other person he sees is the delivery man, who I would imagine has been told not to talk to him. So at the moment, his mental health is probably deteriorating massively being stuck in this environment. It's pretty wild that he's so far made it to 6 months and he's still functioning as a person. I guess having something to focus on, like maybe writing the sweepstake cards and like having phone calls from the sweepstake people, etc., is what's keeping him going at the moment. But it's a very difficult environment for any human being to be in, and the level of just lack of care for his well-being is pretty alarming at this point. But let's continue. So it was months before he got hygiene products, including toilet roll, anything to wash with. So I don't even really want to think about that, to be honest, because that's pretty rough, to say the least. He was regularly woken up in the middle of the night and moved to different locations because people were trying to dox him and find out where he was. But even when they moved him, they blindfolded him and they would bring all of his stuff, but they would leave him naked with just a blanket. So even that was not very dignified for this man at the time. He was just not allowed any clothes, and it's just very strange that this was allowed to go on for so long. So then they started broadcasting him all over the internet as well, because he became such a big hit. He would still be writing the sweepstakes, still trying to reach his goal, and everybody was watching this. He started getting more and more bits and pieces of the food stuff. We got lots of VHSs for his TV. He got more food. He's just got lots of random things. The total was adding up during this time. Again, though, he is completely alone for all of this. And some of the prizes weren't really worth much. So it did become quite difficult to get to that amount of money. Again, they kept moving him around to different places because of people trying to find him. And eventually he got a PlayStation and a game. So he was happily playing that for 3 days straight. And then he put up a sign saying that he was going to boycott the PlayStation because he realised that he's wasted 3 days not doing sweepstakes and should be doing that to get out of this situation. So the TV and the PlayStation weren't seen again. He just kept getting more and more random stuff. And it was all just slowly adding up for him. He'd been in here nearly a year at this point, 335 days straight in this place by himself. And then he had finally reached his target. He was woken up in the middle of the night with party poppers and everybody saying that he's made it out. They handed him his clothes and he went back out into the outside world, and they told him that he had won a massive prize. He lasted 335 days in this room, and as a treat, they gave him a suit and told him he'd be going to spend the day in South Korea, which is something he'd always wanted to do, doing fun things, which he was very... They took him to a theme park, they took him to nice restaurants, and then blindfolded him, only to find that he'd been put in another apartment with the kimchi he bought when he was out, some Korean dictionaries, and was told to get back to Japan, he'd have to earn enough sweepstakes to buy his flight home. The Japanese game show host said that he agreed to do this off his own back, but years later, Nasumbi said that they basically bullied him into doing it. They didn't really give him a choice. So, not knowing Korean, being in a completely foreign country, he had to go through this dictionary to work out how to get the sweepstakes. He was just left again in this room to do it. So he was winning more things, winning more food. They took his clothes again, and he just had to make enough to get the plane home. But as it turned out, without his knowledge, the Japanese game show hosts were moving the goal. So he went from having to get an economy plane ticket home to having to get a business ticket home to having to get a first class ticket home. And he had no idea that they kept moving the target. And it was only after the show was over he realised they had done that. But they wanted to keep him in there for as long as possible so they could make more money out of him. So another 4 months had gone by. Remember, he was in there for 335 days in the first room and then an extra 4 months in another room. He finally went back to Japan, where he was brought to yet another apartment. He was used to this by now and started stripping down. Then something different happened. He was so used to a routine by this point that just stripping down seemed like the normal thing to do, so he did it. Obviously not very happy about having to do it yet again, but little did he know that he was about to be surprised with a whole studio audience, which he had no idea what was going on. I mean, they're all laughing and joking. I think it's very funny, but I think it's safe to say that that look on the man's face in front of you right now is a traumatic experience. A face of pure shock, of pure, I don't know, like I couldn't imagine being put in a situation like that. It's just awful. It's awful that they treated this man this way. And the way he's behaving, he's not seen all those people like that for nearly 2 years. And to see it all broadcast on national television, to see yourself sat in a studio with a load of people after this show is absolutely disgusting. It's absolutely traumatizing. And the fact that they've all the producers in that profited from the experience of him being treated this way and putting him through some serious mental torture for television views is absolutely wild. I'm not sure if this would be allowed today. And I'd also like to think in 1998, in most countries, this would be extremely questionable behaviour to treat a human being this way. So not only did he not know he was being broadcasted live and that it was all over the internet, all over television, every single thing that he was doing, he's then gone from being completely isolated on his own to being opened up completely vulnerably to an audience of hundreds of people. Like, I couldn't even imagine how triggering and traumatizing that would be for somebody like that. At the end of the very last episode, he had to sit there with hosts he had never met before, still naked, but covered with a cushion because they still wouldn't give him any clothes, and had to go through clip by clip of every single episode and all the funny cuts that they made of it and discuss with him how he was feeling in those moments. And he said in a later interview that after coming out and not wearing clothes for such a long time, he actually struggled to wear clothes. His skin was itchy all over. He kept getting like rashes and stuff from wearing materials on his skin because he hadn't worn anything for a year. He also said that his speech had slowed down considerably, and he and his friends and family had noticed that. He was unable to articulate words, and he struggled to engage and interact with people for a long time. After this, they published a book of all of the diary entries he made while he was in the apartments, and that was a huge hit across Japan. He currently has his own production company called Eggplant and is active on Twitter promoting fundraisers and other events that he's helping or attending at. He has been in a few episodes of Japanese TV series and a couple of small roles in films since leaving the apartment, but nothing's really stuck. He's not become massively famous for that like he wanted to be. He has done a fair bit of charitable work. He did climb Mount Everest in support of charity. He also supported many Japanese people during the pandemic, how to cope with isolation and how to understand their mental health in that time and to help keep their mental health good whilst all that was going on. So that's a very positive achievement for him. But yeah, I'm really intrigued to know what you guys think about this, because for me, when I first had this story, it was just so messed up. Like, how can that even be possible? It's like the Truman Show cross like some dystopian Black Mirror episode, but it actually happened to this man. And what I find interesting is the level of like corruption by the producers, who really obviously didn't care about how this was going to affect somebody's mental health in the long run, and only cared about how much money they were making. 16.5 million views he got in the end across the internet and across social media and TV, people watching the TV and watching him live. That is more than the last episode of Game of Thrones views. So that is a huge, huge, huge audience to be watching you without you having any idea about it. And just the long-term effect of that is insane to me. And the fact they let that go on is insane to me. And I am very intrigued to know what you all think about this story. And how would you cope in this situation that this poor man was put in? And some of it really wasn't by choice. Some of it he was like bullied into doing, like the second part in Korea. Like they made him stay and do that, and then they didn't tell him that they kept upping the amount he'd have to make for his plane ticket. I just think, you know, this guy could have sued them for everything they're worth, as far as I'm concerned, just for that little bit alone, you know? Yeah, it's a very strange story, but it's a true life story that happened to this poor guy, and hopefully it will never happen again to anybody, because there was a lot of long-term trauma there. I imagine it's taken him a long time to get over and deal with. I mean, if you can't even wear clothes when you come out because they're irritating you so much, like how far are you going to get very quickly? And it doesn't seem like they did have like a team of counselors or anyone to debrief him after it to give him the long-term support that he would need to recover from that level of isolation. And I just don't think we get away with it today. The TV show itself ended up being cancelled in 2022. I think that's quite a long time, considering his was in 1998. That's quite a long time to let something like that go on. But yeah, please let me know what you all think in the comments. If you made it to the end of my video, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you all so much. And if you did make it to the end, please leave an eggplant emoji in my comment section. I will know what it means. It won't be misconstrued in any other way by me, that's for sure. And the people who do misconstrue it obviously didn't watch the video. So yeah, eggplant emojis all round for everyone who got to the end of my video. Please leave your comments on what you think about this situation. I would love to hear your thoughts on it and whether you'd heard this story before or not. It's just pretty mind-blowing, to be honest. Thank you everybody who's liked and subscribed to my channel. I really appreciate you. And if you haven't already liked and subscribed, please consider doing it. We're a lovely community and we would love to have you here with us, discussing various topics. And yeah, I appreciate every single one of you. So thank you again, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.